hey, we're going to make 50 gallons of Concord grape wine. Of course, the first thing you start with is a wine master, right here. His name is Dave, and he's going to walk us through all the processes. Now, the first thing you do, you have to have a keg, and we happen to have 2 kegs, but you have to make sure the keg is nice and sealed, mount it down, put the rings on, all that stuff, and then it will look like, stand up, it'll look like this, okay? Now, then you have to make sure the keg is watertight. In other words, it doesn't leak. And so we're going to put a hose in the top by the wine master, and I'm going to turn on the hose. Make sure they see the water coming out of the hose, wine master. There you go. And we're going to fill it up until it gets overflows. And in the meantime, the wine master will keep his eye on it, and I'm going to sit down and have a cold beer while the wine master checks out the wine keg for leaks.
There we go. And I don't get a beer.
Okay, the next step in producing 50 gallons of grapes, obviously, is to pick the grapes. And we need 2 bushels of very ripe grapes. And the secret to this operation is that you have to have a grape master who can tell you when to pick the grapes. And over here to my left is the grape master. He is going to look for a sample grape, and he's going to clip them off with his scissors. And as he clips them off, he looks at them and kind of squeezes them a little bit, and will give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending upon the grapes. What do you think?
Ready. Ready.
He says they're ready. So, now, we have to fill up a bushel basket at this grape arbor, and then we're going to go to another grape arbor because we have a multitude of grapes, so that the wine will taste like no other wine in Putnam County. The next step in the winemaking process is after you get the wine grapes picked and selected by the grape master. You have 2 bushel over here, and at least 2 bushel. And then you have to take the grapes off the stems and put them in this 12-gallon crock right there. Okay? Now, what that entails is very carefully taking the good grapes off of the bunch and throwing away the either overripe ones or the not ripe ones, like the little green ones. And you throw them in the crock, and then the grape master will say to mash the grapes. Now, what we have there is a Gomer invention called a grape smasher. And what it does, you see the holes there? What it does is let the juice come through, and the whole grape then is smashed, so we get juice and the skins, so that there's nothing left but grape juice. Okay, now I'm going to do this very carefully, so kind of pay attention. Oh, man. Okay. And then when it fills up to about here, 12 gallons of grapes, and you let them set for 4 days, stirring each day with a Gomer squasher. We're going to stir the grapes. Remember, you have to stir the grapes about 3 or 4 days, and you stir them with the old Gomer crusher right here, and take the top off and put it over here, and take this top off and this here, and with the Gomer crusher we will crush the grapes. See how much they came up? And it's almost full now. And so we just keep stirring and we keep stirring. Look at that juice. Isn't that a beautiful color? It's all going through and filtered through the Gomer crusher, so that we get a lot of the juice. Now you may wonder, when do we put the yeast in? Well, we don't use yeast with the Gomer Rosé, because all fresh fruit has its own natural yeast. So you see the bubbles there. The bubbles mean that the yeast is now working with the sugars in the grapes, and it's already starting to ferment and make the wood alcohol and the carbon dioxide. That's what that the foam is. Okay, now I think that it's good enough that I'm going to have to call the grape master and the wine master and let them know the progress of our winemaking, because tomorrow will be the day that we put it into the keg. So I'm going to put them on speed dial here real quick. Hello, hey, Grape Master. I think we're on a party line with the wine master, so I'm going to talk to both of you. And looking at the grapes in the crock, I think we're ready to go. Days of making our grape wine. Next thing we got to do is put the grapes into the keg, and we'll use some buckets, and we'll put them in like that. And then once we have them all in, then we'll seal it all up with the bung. The bung like this, and then put this thing on called a bubbler. It's called a bubbler. If you buy it in the store, they're called airlocks, but it's a lot cheaper to get a piece of copper tubing and put some holes in the lid. Put some holes in the lid there and fill with the water. Fill with the water, and then we'll take some wax and wax this all up, which you'll see later. And so that the reason for that is you have to have an airtight container here, and so when you have your cracks right here, you can you have to wax it, and then with your bubbler you wax it up there, and if it bubbles, which you'll see later, that means the keg is sealed and it's ready to start fermenting. Okay, now the next step is to put on the wax on the bottom so that it is now sealed and no air can get out from the bunghole. And as you see, it's very carefully putting the liquid wax around that bunghole. Oh God.
Sam keeps going. Sam.
Okay, now the next step is to put on the bubbler, and the bubbler has to go right in that little hole right there, and then once we have that situated and we got enough room for the bubbler on the other end, let me hold that, we will pour wax now on the top if it is still liquid. And it is, looks like it is liquid. We're going to pour that all around these. Yeah, I got it.
You have to get in there.
You're right. Get as close as you can. Okay, we've solved one problem. And now the tap master is going to try to reinsert the spigot. And the see if it works through the spigot.
There you go.
And it's coming. It's coming.
Pretty light color.
Slow but sure, we'll be here all night.
It's delicious.
We never know what's going to happen.
Gotta do it again? Ooh, good picture. Beautiful. Mary is on the camera now. She has replaced Vino.
I don't know if we're gonna get it to stop.
correctly.
Switch me pictures on it.
You want another picture?
Yeah.
Oh, there it comes. There it comes.
Okay. I got a hold of him.
We got wine.
Now the wine master here. The wine master here now, he will look at the wine and obviously it's going to be delicious. And so as he sips it, he turns around for some reason. And then
Check it first.
yeah, it's probably the rosé color.
Yeah,
What do you think?
pretty light color.
Yes. You got an aroma? Or bouquet. It's called a bouquet.
I smell it from here.
Delicious. Best one yet?
Oh,
Say yes.
might be. Say yes.
They don't know on a video.
It's not a sweet wine.
Is it?
No.
Oh, good. Well, this is our 5th year doing this, I believe, 4th or 5th. And we got to tell you a story while we're draining some here. The first year we did this, we were watching it to bubble, see? And some guy came down and said, "What are you guys doing?" Now, old buddy Master says, "We're having a Virgil." And he said, "A what?" And he said, "You know, when you sit around and watch something," he said, "You mean the vigil?" And so we laughed and laughed and laughed. And so every year we do this, and so we'd like to have the real Virgil Vino right here. He's going to. Okay, the next step in this process is filling the bottles, and we have two of the finest bottle fillers around. Mary from Findlay and Linda from Ottawa on Thomas Street. And also it comes Gary. Gary's going to sample it too. He's been an old wine man from years ago. And he's going to sip it, and then he's going to give us his opinion. He smells it first, smells the bouquet. And what do you think?
It's drier this year.
Drier this year, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, the cappers. How we doing with the caps?
Good.
Very well, thank you.
Look at that cap. Look at that. Look at how she does that.
Left-handed.
Left-handed. Left-handed capper.
Pouring
They're
left-handed.
rare. And a left-handed pourer. Okay, so you put them all in these label-less bottles. And you fill it up. Look at that. And we're almost ready for another pitcher, which is called the relief pitcher. Mary is going to go get the relief pitcher, and there it is. The relief pitcher is now going to get filled.